I'm finding myself really challenged these days by the words of Colossians chapter 3. It begins by saying, "Since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things above, not on earthly things, for you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory." This is an amazing challenge to us to be people whose hearts and minds are fully set on the things above, not on earthly things. That our deepest longings, our deepest priorities in life would be Jesus, the pursuit of Jesus, and the fullness of his kingdom. The chapter goes on to explain a bunch of things. It tells us to put to death the things that belong to this world, to put to death lust and greed and all kinds of evil desires. And it just makes sense. If our hearts and our minds are fully, passionately in pursuit of Jesus, I'm not looking to physical pleasure or the accumulation of more stuff to satisfy my soul, because I realize that life is about so much more than just the here and now. He reminds us also to be people who get rid of all things like anger and rage and malice and slander and filthy language from our lips. Can you imagine how much it would change the way that we care for one another, the way that we speak about the people who disagree with us during this season? If our hearts and our minds are fixed on Jesus, we are at peace. We experience a really different kind of wholeness and fullness. There isn't rage and anger within our souls. We're not maliciously longing that other people would suffer or experience hardship. There will be no kind of slander where we would badmouth people around us or people who think differently than us, if our hearts and our minds are fully set on him. But instead, as the chapter goes on, we would be people who are clothed with compassion and kindness, with humility, with gentleness and patience. We would bear with one another and forgive the people around us if they ever sin against us, because our hearts and our minds are fixed on Jesus. We're not looking simply for the fulfillment of life in this time and space, and even the tragedies around us do not define the reality of who we are, because we are fixed on Jesus and the fullness of the life to come. And from that space, we can be people who let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts and rule in our minds through faith. That we would be one body who lives at peace. We would wrap everything up in love, which binds everything together in perfect unity. This is a really challenging passage. I'm finding it really interesting and good to just keep working through and processing. What does it look like to be people whose hearts and minds are set on Jesus? Who live confident and secure in the fullness of who he is? Because then we have peace. Then we have strength. Then we have confidence. The things of this world don't rattle us in the same way because our hearts and our minds are not set upon them. How much of your mind these days is set on your own circumstances, or on the intensity of the world around us, or on the hardness of what might come? And how much of your mind is set on Jesus? How many hours in the day do you spend thinking about him and processing him, enjoying and delighting in the goodness of who he is? And how many hours in the day do you spend worried and concerned about what's going on in life? How much of the desires of your heart are for a deeper sense of holiness, a richer sense of intimacy with God, a more passionate relationship with him? And how many of the desires on your heart are for the accumulation of more things, or for some kind of physical satisfaction, or for more stuff, or for things to work out the way that you want them to? It's an interesting challenge to us in this season to be people who live with our hearts and our minds set on him. Would you invite Jesus today to fill you more, to set your heart and your mind on him? And as you go through the course of your day, when you catch yourself thinking thoughts that are anxious or frustrated or lustful or greedy or full of rage or malice, or if you can catch yourself speaking slander, would you move these things towards Jesus and ask him to change your heart? Ask him to move you to be more the person that he wants you to be. He's right there with us. He wants to strengthen us and empower us. He desires that we would reflect him well in this season. So let's pursue him for these things, so we can be people who experience his love and his hope and his goodness. May God bless and strengthen you. Amen.